Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm really glad you're here. And
Mhm.
I hope, wherever you are listening to this, whether you're on a night drive or maybe folding laundry or just staring at the ceiling, I hope you're somewhere comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe dim the lights a little bit. Maybe it's late because tonight we are going to a place that it sits right on the edge of what we think we know about reality.
It is definitely a late night kind of conversation. We're stepping out of the mundane world for a bit.
Yeah.
The world of taxes and traffic and grocery lists. And we're stepping into the living room of Jane Roberts and Robert Butts
Yeah.
back in the mid-60s.
Right.
We're basically going to eavesdrop on a conversation with a personality who doesn't actually have a physical body.
Right. We are talking about the Seth Material. And look, I know what some of you might be thinking.
Well,
Channeling, really. Are we going there? But whether you are a diehard believer in the metaphysical or you're just here for the psychological thrill of it all, or maybe you're a total skeptic who just likes a good story, you have to admit the atmosphere of these sessions is just a little bit spooky.
it is. It's a little chilling.
In the best way possible. It's like a ghost story that turns out to be a physics lecture.
It is. There's an undeniable mystique to it.
Mm.
But what's fascinating to me, and why I think this material has survived for decades, why people are still reading these books 50 years later, is that despite the mysterious delivery method,
Yeah.
the actual information is incredibly grounded. It's logical. It's almost, I don't know, scientific, but a science we haven't quite invented yet.
I like that.
It deals with physics, psychology, biology, all wrapped into one. It's not just, ghost stories. It's this complex philosophy about how consciousness actually constructs matter.
Exactly. It's mind-bending stuff. It really challenges the very way we look at consciousness itself. And tonight we are looking specifically at session 160. This is from the early sessions, book 4 of the Seth Material.
Correct. Session 160.
And before we get too deep into the void here, we have to do the mandatory housekeeping.
Always.
We want to be really clear about where this is coming from and give credit where it's due. So first off, this podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We aren't selling you a course on how to levitate.
Not yet, anyway.
We're just exploring ideas.
Right. And we are looking at the source material provided by the New Awareness Network, specifically Session 160, which was recorded on June 7, 1965.
1965. Wow. That feels like a lifetime ago, a completely different world.
June 7, 1965, a Monday night.
So settle in, because the mission for this deep dive is to unpack some ideas that, frankly, might keep you up at night.
In a good way.
In a good way. We're going to talk about why positive thinking, standing in the mirror saying affirmations until you're blue in the face, might actually be backward.
It's a controversial take, for sure, especially in the self-help world. But Seth makes a really compelling case that just, plastering happy thoughts over sad ones.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
And we're going to talk about why traffic noise is a choice, which, as someone living in a city with constant sirens and honking, I really, really need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
If I can learn to turn off the sound of the garbage truck in my mind, this session will be worth its weight in gold.
It's a distinct possibility, according to Seth.
And here's where it gets really interesting. We're going to talk about how your atoms, the literal stuff you are made of, might have their own little minds, their own little agendas.
It's a fascinating session. It deals with the very architecture of how we build our reality from the inside out. It really challenges this idea that we're victims of our environment and instead suggests we are, in fact, the architects.
So let's set the scene. It's 1965, Elmira, New York. Jane Roberts is a writer, science fiction, poetry. Her husband, Rob, is a painter.
Right. They're artists.
They are just regular people who stumble into this bizarre phenomenon where Jane goes into a trance and this energy personality essence named Seth speaks through her.
Yeah.
They're in their living room. It's 900 CRM. What is the vibe in the room tonight?
Well, usually these sessions are pretty structured. Seth, the entity Jane channels, he likes routine. He's very disciplined. But tonight there is a bit of an edge.
Mm-hmm.
Rob's notes are very specific here. He says they are in the living room, as we used to do.
Yeah.
But there's a problem.
The environment isn't cooperating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is quite a bit of traffic noise outside.
Yeah.
Elmira isn't a huge city, but on this particular Monday night, the cars are loud. Maybe it was a warm night, windows open.
Mm-hmm.
And Jane sits down in a rocker. She closes her eyes to let Seth come through, but the noise is just Intrusive.
And anyone who has tried to meditate or even just read a difficult book or concentrate on anything knows how annoying that is. A motorcycle goes by and your brain just snaps, you lose the thread.
Absolutely. It breaks the flow. And you can hear it in the notes Rob took. He mentions that Jane's voice had a stronger edge, almost like she was trying to cut through the noise of the cars going by.
So she was tense.
She wasn't relaxed. She was kind of competing with the environment. Her pacing was a bit sharper. You could almost feel the tension in the room just from reading the transcript.
It's such a human moment, though. Here she is about to channel this infinite wisdom from another dimension, but first she has to deal with a loud muffler on a Chevy outside.
Right.
It's such a great contrast between the cosmic and the completely mundane.
It grounds the whole thing, doesn't it? It makes it feel real. And Seth addresses this dynamic immediately. He starts by talking about the nature of these sessions. So usually they stick to a pretty strict schedule. Monday nights, Wednesday nights. Seth is very disciplined about it.
Why is that? You'd think a spirit or an energy personality, someone who exists outside of time, could just pop in whenever they want.
Right.
Why do they need a calendar? Is Seth just a stickler for punctuality?
Well, Seth explains that it's about conditioning for Jane. He says, I have been strict concerning our schedule, since conditioning must be set up. Basically, Jane needed to learn the discipline of going in and out of trance safely and efficiently. If they did it randomly all the time, she might not develop that stability. She needed to build the psychic muscle, so to speak.
So it's like training for a marathon. You don't just run whenever you feel like it. You have a training schedule. Your body needs to know, okay, it's Monday at 9, it's time to work.
Exactly. It creates a psychological container. It signals the subconscious that it's safe to open the door. But, and this is the cool part, he acknowledges that spontaneous sessions can be excellent if the emotional climate is right.
The emotional climate, I like that phrase. It sounds like a weather report for your feelings.
It kind of is.
Forecast today. High energy with a chance of insight.
I mean, if the vibe is right, if the energy is high, if the intuition is sparking, sometimes you can break the rules and get amazing material. He says, when Rubert's condition is such that a particularly good trance can be achieved, then we can do much. So the rules are there for safety, but spontaneity is where the magic happens.
It's the difference between practicing scales on the piano and playing jazz. You need the scales first, but eventually you just want to jam.
Precisely.
But Seth adds this humorous little note about consent. I found this really charming, actually. It totally goes against the spooky movie tropes.
Oh, I loved this part.
He's basically saying he's a polite house guest.
He really is. He says, it goes without saying, however, that discretion must be used, and I will not come through without your consent.
That is profound, actually, because in pop culture, we have this idea of possession, right? The spirit takes over the body against the person's will.
All right, the exorcist model.
Eyes roll back, head spin, pea soup everywhere. It's scary. It's non-consensual.
Absolutely. But Seth is saying, no, not at all. That's not how this works. He clarifies that this consent can be conscious or unconscious, but he makes it very clear. If, however, you consciously do not want a session and express yourselves in this direction, then no session would be held.
It's kind of funny to imagine. Like, he's hanging out in the ether, checking his watch, waiting for the door to open, but he won't barge in. He's respecting the boundaries of the homeowner.
Knock, knock, anybody home?
No, Seth, we're watching TV. Okay, see you Wednesday.
It grounds the whole phenomenon in mutual respect. It's not possession, it's cooperation. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
Jane allows it, Seth steps in. If Jane says no, Seth stays out. It really changes the tone from something scary to something collaborative. But let's go back to that traffic noise, because this becomes a major theme of the night. It's not just background noise. It actually becomes the lesson.
Right. So Jane, or Ruburt, as Seth calls her, is clearly irritated. The cars are loud. It's distracting. She's tense. She's trying to do this delicate mental work, and the world is just screaming at her.
And Seth, being Seth, gets a little cocky about it.
He does. He basically says, don't worry about it. I got this.
He says, I can indeed arrange our evening in such a manner that your traffic will bother us not a bit.
That is a bold claim. I can arrange the evening. If I'm Rob sitting there taking notes, I'm thinking, is he going to telepathically make the car stop? Is he going to flatten tires a mile down the road?
Or create a force field around the house.
Right, that's what you might think.
Yeah.
That he's going to change the external environment. We always want the external environment changed. Make the noise stop, make the neighbor quiet. But no.
He's talking about something much deeper. He's talking about altering their perception of the environment.
And what happens? Does it work? Does Jane stop hearing it?
Well, as the session goes on, Rob notes that Jane actually becomes immune to the noise.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, later in the transcript, Rob writes, Jane leaned forward to tap on the table for emphasis. She smiled. She now acted as though immune to the traffic noise.
Wow.
Even Rob realizes he forgot about the noise while he was taking notes.
So Seth didn't stop the traffic. The cars were still there. The sound waves were still hitting their eardrums.
Yep.
The physics of the situation hadn't changed, but he changed how they experienced the traffic.
Precisely. And this is the first big lesson of the night. It's a real-time demonstration of the topic Seth wants to discuss, the nature of action and perception. Seth tells them that eventually they will be able to choose which aspects of action to perceive and which to ignore.
That sounds like a superpower. I choose to ignore this traffic. I choose to ignore this annoyance.
I choose to ignore the fact that my coworker is chewing gum loudly.
Yes. It sounds like selective hearing, but elevated to an art form.
It is a superpower, in a way.
Yeah.
Seth says, for as you know, you do not perceive all aspects of action by any means, and it can indeed, to some extent, be up to you to choose those aspects of action with which you will be concerned.
So we are usually filtering reality unconsciously. We let things bug us because we aren't taking control of the filter.
We are victims of our sensory input.
Yeah.
We hear a noise, we react, we get annoyed. We let the world dictate our internal state. But he's saying, no, you can literally tune it out, not just ignore it by, gritting your teeth and suffering through it,
Right.
but to cease to perceive it as a disturbance. You can turn the volume knob down in your mind.
It's the ultimate noise-canceling headphone, but it's your consciousness.
And it sets the stage for the core concept of this session. Because if you can change how you perceive traffic, if you can simply decide it doesn't exist for you in that moment, then what else can you change?
Right. If you can tune out a car, can you tune out an illness? Can you tune out a negative situation?
That's the question.
Okay, let's unpack that, because this is where we get into the heavy stuff. This isn't just about noise anymore. The session pivots to this idea of suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I hear the word suggestion, I think of hypnosis, or maybe someone giving me advice. I suggest you try the pasta. It feels external.
Right. That's how we usually use the word. We think of it as something coming from the outside. Someone suggests something to you. But Seth completely redefines it. He drops this bombshell. He says, what you call suggestion is indeed expectation.
Expectation. Okay, that feels different. Suggestion feels like a maybe. Expectation feels like a definite. I expect the sun to rise. I expect gravity to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Expectation is active.
All right.
It's a belief about what will happen. It carries weight. It carries conviction. And he goes on to say, and this is a quote you might want to write down, you should understand by now how the physical image is constructed. This construction is from the inside out.
From the inside out. I feel like we hear that phrase a lot in spiritual circles, create your reality, manifesting, all that. It's almost become a cliche on Instagram.
It has.
But Seth is being very literal here. He's talking about biology. He's talking about how your arm gets made.
Very literal. He's saying the inner self, the part of you that's deeper than your ego, the blueprint of you, it has an image of what it wants to be. It has a self-image. And it tries to build a physical body that matches that image.
Okay.
It's constantly constructing your physical reality based on what it expects to see. It's like a projector. The film is inside, the screen is your body.
So if I expect to be healthy, my inner self builds a healthy body.
Ideally, yes, the system is designed for health. But here is the catch. We have these things Seth calls mutant mental genes.
Whoa. Mutant mental genes. That sounds like a sci-fi horror movie. Or an X-Men villain. What on earth is a mutant mental gene?
It's a brilliant metaphor, especially for 1965 when genetics was really entering the public consciousness. He says that when there are errors in this construction process, when illness or distortion appears in the body, it's not random bad luck.
Okay.
It's a result of inner distortions. Just like a mutant gene in biology causes a physical defect, a mutant mental gene, which is a distorted belief or expectation, causes a physical illness.
So the illness is a physical copy of a mental mistake.
Exactly. He calls it a duplication. The physical symptom is just a duplicate of an inner distortion. He says, as errors and mistakes creep into the physical organic system, so also these mutant genes and distortions are, on a smaller scale, the result of inner distortions within the consciousness of the individual genes.
That is empowering, but also kind of terrifying. Because it means we are responsible for the schematic. If the house is crooked, it's because the blueprint was crooked.
It puts the responsibility squarely on the creator, which is us. But Seth is careful here. He explains that these distortions usually don't come from the deep inner self. The deep inner self knows perfection. These distortions come from the personal subconscious, or the ego.
The ego, always the villain in these stories.
Well, we'll get to the ego's role in a minute. It's not necessarily a villain, just misguided.
Like a manager who got promoted too quickly.
That's a great way to put it. But the key takeaway here is that suggestion isn't something you force on yourself from the outside. You can't just plaster a positive thought on top of a deep-seated negative expectation.
Right, it's like painting over a crack in the foundation. You can paint it bright yellow, but the crack is still there. The structural integrity is compromised.
And ideally, suggestion should come from within the self. It should be the natural flow of the inner self outward. When we try to force it, or when we have these hidden distortions, that's when we get the mutant genes. We get a mismatch between what we say we want, I want to be healthy, and what we expect. I always get sick in winter.
And the expectation wins.
Every time.
This leads us right into the next segment, which I think is probably the most practical part of this deep dive. It's about negative thoughts.
Oh, this is crucial. This is where the rubber meets the road for anyone trying to apply this stuff.
Because I know so many people, and I do this too, who get into this manifestation mindset and then they panic. They think, oh no, I just had a negative thought. I'm going to manifest a car accident.
I'm going to manifest losing my job. I have to cancel it. Cancel.
Yes, it creates this hypervigilance.
The fear of the negative thought. It's a very common trap. It creates a neurosis about your own mind. You become afraid to think. You treat your own consciousness like a minefield where one wrong step blows everything up.
Exactly. We become afraid of our own minds. We treat thoughts like grenades. But Seth flips this logic completely upside down.
He does, and this is why I love this material. It's so relieving. Seth explains that the negative thought is not the cause, it's the symptom.
Wait, say that again for the people in the back. The negative thought is the symptom. It's not the thing that creates the bad reality.
No. Seth says the negative suggestions, therefore, are symptoms of an inner block of energy and impetus. They represent a rift that has already occurred.
Okay, let's break that down. A rift that has already occurred. So by the time I think I'm a failure, the damage is already done. The thought is the after effect.
Think of it like a river. Imagine a river flowing smoothly. That's your natural energy, your life force. It wants to flow. It wants to be creative and healthy. That is the default state of your being.
Okay.
But then something blocks it. Maybe a fear, a trauma, a rigid belief held by the ego. That block happens deep down, often below your conscious radar.
Okay, so the dam is built. The beaver, or the ego, has put a log in the river.
Right? The water stops flowing. And because the flow is stopped, you start to get these stagnant little pools where the water just swirls around and doesn't go anywhere. It gets murky. Seth calls them dead eddies.
Dead eddies. That's such a vivid image. Not a living current, but a dead loop.
He says negative suggestions are dead eddies, the motion that means nothing in dead waters.
That is poetic and dark. Motion that means nothing in dead waters.
It is. But think about what it means for us practically.
Yeah.
The negative thought, I'm never going to succeed, I feel sick, I'm not good enough, that thought is just a dead eddy. It's showing you where the water has already stopped.
The thought didn't stop the water.
No, the thought is just the evidence that the water has stopped.
So fighting the thought is useless.
Completely useless. It's like trying to sweep away smoke while the fire's still burning.
Yeah.
You're fighting the symptom. You can suppress the thought, you can chant affirmations over it, but if the block is still there, the energy is still dead.
This is actually really liberating because it means if I have a negative thought, I don't have to panic and think I'm creating bad reality. I can just look at it and say, oh, interesting, that's a signal flare. Somewhere inside, I have a block.
Precisely. It turns the negative thought from a monster into a messenger. It's telling you, hey, check the plumbing. Something is clogged down here. It invites curiosity instead of fear. You can look at your negative thoughts and ask, why did the flow stop here? Instead of, oh God, make it go away.
And the humor here is how hard we try to positive talk our way out of it. We stand there with our dead eddies shouting, I am abundant, I am healthy, while the river is completely dry.
And Seth points out the futility of that. He says the specific negative words are just indications of the break. The break occurs first, and he calls negative suggestions impeding actions. They show you where the impedance is.
So we have this flow of energy. We have these blocks. And usually the thing creating the block is the ego. So let's talk about the ego. In this session, Seth paints a picture of the ego that is.
Well, it's kind of sad. It's not the villainous monster we sometimes think of. It's more like A control freak manager who is terrified of losing his job.
That is a perfect analogy. Seth describes the ego as being anxious. It attempts to set itself aside from action. It wants to stand apart from the rest of the self and say, I am in charge here. I am stable. I am separate. I am the captain of this ship.
But it can't, right? Because it's part of the whole system. You can't be the captain of a ship if you aren't on the ship.
Right, it's impossible. But the ego acts out of fear. It fears losing control. It feels that if it lets go, if it lets the natural energy flow, it will dissolve or be overwhelmed.
It thinks chaos will ensue.
It thinks if it stops micromanaging, the body will fall apart.
So it builds dams. It tries to stop the river to prove it can control the river. It tries to impede the flow of action. And Seth says this is what creates discordant actions or illness. He says, when the ego, therefore, becomes too overbearing, it attempts to impede the flow of action. The delicate inner mechanisms by which inner reality should be constructed into physical reality, therefore, become seriously affected.
It's self-sabotage. The ego tries to stay safe by stopping the flow. But by stopping the flow, it creates illness, which makes it unsafe. It creates the very thing it fears.
It's the paradox of control. Trying too hard to control everything is exactly what causes you to lose control.
And emotions play a huge role here. I loved how Seth reframed emotions because, again, we are often taught to control our emotions. Don't be angry. Don't be too sad.
Be professional. Keep a stiff upper lip. Don't let them see you sweat.
Exactly. And Seth says that is dangerous. He calls emotions natural controlling devices.
Wait, emotions are controlling devices. I usually think of emotions as being out of control. He lost control and got angry.
That's what I thought too. But that's because we usually only see them when they explode. Seth argues that if emotions are allowed to flow freely, they create stability, they move energy through the system, they clear resistances. They are the regulators.
The release valves.
So anger, if you just let it flow, it washes through and leaves you stable. It corrects the imbalance.
Yes, it informs you of a boundary violation, you express it, the energy moves, and you return to equilibrium.
Yeah.
But when the ego dams them up,
Mm-hmm.
when it says, I shouldn't feel this, I must not show this, Seth says, it is only when they are denied that they become explosive or dangerous. Then indeed they result in explosive barrages, ranting and shouting, organic and psychological illness.
Ranting and shouting. I feel seen. We've all been there. You hold it in for weeks, you smile, you nod, and then suddenly you're screaming about the dishwasher.
And it's not about the dishwasher. It's never about the dishwasher. It's about the dammed up energy. The dishwasher is just the leak in the dam.
So Seth is telling us that the ego needs to just chill out. It needs to realize it's part of a team.
Right. He talks about a reasonable and even disciplined ego.
Yeah.
He's not saying kill the ego. That's another spiritual trap. Ego death. Seth isn't about that. We need the ego. We need that sense of self to navigate physical reality. You need an ego to drive a car and pay taxes and know which mouth to put the food in. But we need a democratic ego, one that acknowledges it is part of a larger gestalt.
Gestalt. That's a big Seth word. It means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Right. The ego is just one part of the whole self. It needs to cooperate with the inner self, the subconscious, get the cells of the body.
Okay, this is the perfect transition to the sci-fi segment. Because when Seth starts talking about the body, he gets down to the molecular level. And this is where my mind really started to bend.
Yeah.
This is where we go from psychology to, like, quantum biology.
This is the concept of capsule comprehension.
Capsule comprehension. It sounds like a pharmaceutical drug, but it's actually about atoms.
Seth reveals that every atom, every molecule, every cell has its own consciousness. He says they contain inherent suggestions in coded form that give them instructions for growth.
So a liver cell isn't just a blob of biology. It has a code inside it. It knows what it is.
And not just a code like a computer program, but a comprehension. It understands its purpose. It has a self-image. Each molecule has a self-image. It knows, I am a molecule and I am part of this liver, which is part of this body.
That is wild. Your atoms have self-esteem.
In a way, yes. They have a drive to exist and to cooperate. Seth describes the body as a massive cooperative system, a democracy of cells. They all work together to keep the you alive. They are constantly communicating.
And he uses the cancer analogy here, which is really striking.
It is. He compares a tyrannical ego to cancer. Think about it. What is cancer? It's a cell that refuses to cooperate with the whole. It decides to grow on its own, uncontrollably, consuming everything around it.
It sets itself apart, says me first.
It ignores the gestalt. It ignores the needs of the neighbor cells. And Seth says the ego does the same thing when it refuses to assimilate experience or tries to block the flow. He says It is most frequently the error of the ego that sets up impediments and sets up counter-suggestions that can be somewhat considered cancerous.
So when the ego tries to be a dictator, it breaks the cooperation of the body.
It breaks the trust. The cells are trying to work together, but the ego is sending down these panic-blocking signals. It's like a bad CEO sending conflicting memos to the factory floor. Eventually, the workers get confused, the machinery breaks, and the physical system reflects that chaos.
The cells pick up on the ego's isolationism.
They do.
So if we are living in this democracy of atoms and our ego is the terrified manager trying to micromanage everything, how do we fix it? Does Seth give any practical advice? Or is he just pointing out the problem?
He actually gives a very specific practical tip, and it relates to Jane or Ruburt.
Oh, right. The sleeve trick. I marked this in my notes because I wanted to try it immediately.
Yes. Seth mentions a habit Jane has. Before she goes to sleep, she makes a request to her own system. She asks that her system effortlessly continue its healthful and natural cooperation.
That sounds so simple. Hey, body, keep doing your thing.
It is simple, but Seth calls it a good beginning aid. Think about the wording. Effortlessly. That's key. No strain. Healthful and natural cooperation. She is reinforcing the idea that health is natural. She's reminding the ego to step back and let the factory run itself.
It's like the manager going home for the night and telling the night shift, I trust you guys, you know what to do, I'm going to sleep.
Exactly. And because it's done before sleep, it bypasses the ego's defenses. The ego's about to go offline anyway, so the suggestion sinks deep into the subconscious and communicates directly with that capsule comprehension of the cells. It aligns the conscious wish with the cellular behavior.
I love that. It's actionable. Tonight, before I sleep, I'm going to tell my atoms, you guys got this. Collaborate. Don't listen to my anxiety from earlier. You know how to build a body better than I do.
It's a great practice. And he also mentions psychological time, which is a specific exercise Seth teaches for clearing the electrical circuit between the self and the inner self. But the core principle is simply reestablishing communication and trust within your own being. It's about clearing the lines.
It's amazing how relevant this is. I mean, this was 1965, no internet, no smartphones. But the anxiety, the noise, the need for control, it feels like he's talking to us right now.
Human nature hasn't changed much. The ego is still scared. The traffic is still loud. The struggle to let go is still the same. The tools he offers are timeless because the problems are structural to human consciousness.
Speaking of the traffic, let's wrap up with the ending of the session because Seth signs off with one of the funniest lines I've heard in these texts. It's such a sharp turn from the deep metaphysics.
It is classic Seth dry humor. He has this way of being incredibly profound and then winking at you.
So they've been going for nearly 2 hours. Jane has been in and out of trance. The traffic has been roaring outside. And Seth is getting ready to leave. He says goodbye, gives his regards, calls Rob his frisky friend Joseph, which is a whole other story.
That's a deep cut, yeah.
And then he drops this advice.
He says, until you master some of the rules for recognizing or ignoring certain portions of action, you can always stuff your ears with cotton.
Stuff your ears with cotton.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Here is this multidimensional entity who just explained the metaphysical construction of matter, the consciousness of atoms, and the nature of suggestion. And his final practical advice is, buy some earplugs.
It's so grounding. It's like, yes, you can reshape reality with your mind, but in the meantime, use the cotton.
It reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously. Spiritual growth is a process. You don't have to be a master of reality creation on day one. If the noise bothers you, fix it physically. It's okay. Don't suffer just to prove you're spiritual. Use the tools available to you.
I love that. It's permissive. It allows us to be human while we're striving to be more.
Absolutely. It's very compassionate teaching.
So that brings us to the end of session 160. It's a lot to take in. The idea that your negative thoughts are just smoke signals. The idea that your body is a democracy. The idea that you can tune out the world if you choose to.
It's a session that demands you look at your own life differently. It asks you to take responsibility, but also to relax, to trust the flow.
And that is what we want you to do. But listen, don't just take our word for it. This was just a summary, a skim off the top. We are just two people talking about a text that is incredibly dense and rich.
You really have to read the books.
Please do. This is from the early sessions, book 4. But there are so many volumes of the Seth Material. Each one is a treasure trove of insight. You can find them and learn more about the work of Jane Roberts and Robert Butts at the New Awareness Network website. That's sethcenter.com/8-early sessions.
Go buy the books. Support the publisher who keeps this material alive. It's important stuff.
It's worth the deep dive. So, here's our final provocative thought for you to sleep on tonight. If Seth is right, and your physical environment is built from the inside out, if the world you see is just a reflection of your inner expectations.
Then what is that annoying sound in your life telling you?
Exactly, that person who irritates you, that noise that won't stop, that recurring problem. If it's a dead eddy, if it's a symptom of a block,
Mm.
what is it trying to show you about yourself?
Are you brave enough to look at the block instead of just fighting the symptom?
Something to think about while you're stuffing your ears with cotton.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Sleep well.